That is James Mennie. He is over at the Montreal Gazette. Jim, just before we begin, seeing the folks at the REM, this is a stunner. The frequency of service temporarily reduced because apparently, according to their press release, it is important for their teams to take stock with users. It says trains are operating, but the winter braking system requires frequent maintenance of the cars, which affects the availability of the whole fleet. So I guess all that to say, the REM is running at a reduced level this afternoon. I think that's accurate.
I mean, this, Aaron. I know we're talking about tariffs. This has got to be one of the most in-your-face, ongoing scandals I have ever seen, and especially the smug hypocrisy coming out of provincial affairs. Oh, well, it's public transit. Remember when you and I talked about this? When this thing was announced, it's like, no. When we put our trains down, you can't have any other public transit there. We have a monopoly on it. Yeah. This damn thing doesn't work because it's snowing, Aaron. Okay? So I want to hear from the head of the case of their branch there, or the CPD Infra, whatever, okay? I want to explain tell me how smart you are. Tell me how, with $7 billion of our money, you can't make a train go in winter in Montreal. It is for Montreal. I know the trains were built in India because you thought you were getting a good deal. But did you forget, we have winter here? Because this is beyond embarrassing. And I would not blame a single commuter, certainly as mostly people on the South Shore, who turned around, said, go plunk straight to hell. I'm back in my car. I don't care if you give it to me for free. I have to get to work. I don't have the time to jerk around with your clearly experimental model toy train that apparently from one day to the other simply doesn't work.
Jim, to that end, let me introduce or bring back our feature, which is the number of consecutive days the REM has run without a service interruption. Here we go. None. All right, let's continue and talk about a couple of stories. You mentioned tariffs, Jim, so nothing new today. Lots of meetings, though, today, right?
A lot of meetings, and once again, will it lead anywhere? Let's hope, especially the interprovincial trade barriers. I know you've been talking about that this afternoon. But once again, we cannot ignore that something very fundamental is happening here. And you know what? Okay, Donald Trump, wake up call, blah, blah, blah. But there's something happening here. It's almost like a domino is beginning to tip over, that a lot of things we took for granted, a lot of political realities we took for granted, seem to have been, no thicker than onion paper. The poll that I sent you yesterday, and everyone's talking about it today, where the Liberals all of a sudden are in second place. I mean, honest to God, that I was gobsmacked by that. Are they doing well with Francophones? Apparently, they're still only at 9%. But the fact that they have just jumped by 5 points for no other reason than the fact that people in Quebec are waking up and discovering that, you know what, you can't cocoon yourself in all the cliches and all the presumptions that, I'll just whine a little more loudly and Ottawa will toss me some more cash. The idea that the Americans, that Donald Trump, but let's face it, the Americans, because they voted for him, are not going to waste time having you explain to them how important it is for them to speak French. They'll be too busy bulldozing you and your culture into the ground if they are given the chance. And believe me, Donald Trump would love nothing more than to get a chance to do that, not just to Quebec, but to the rest of the country. So I think a lot of people have figured out, you can live in the real world and you can have a government, no matter what political stripe it is, a government that is looking out for you on real issues, as opposed to just spouting off about another bedtime fairy tale that makes you feel better. We are seeing this absolute sea change, and it's not just. I was amazed because we had the poll, the TVA poll, that shows the Liberals up 5 points, tied with the CAQ at 21%, just 9 points behind the PQ. But there are two other polls that were considered, Leger and Angus Reid, earlier this year that show that pride in being Canadian on the part of Quebecers has skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And all of that seems to have been, a sort of contingent on the controversy that we're seeing now with the United States. But imagine, Aaron, if what we are seeing is not some aberration, is not some phenomenon, but is in fact what the case has been. It's only been paved over by, a lot of interest, a lot of political parties, a lot of media that have skin in the game to say, we're under threat, our identity is under threat because of, and certainly in the case of the media, their market is under threat. And all of a sudden we're just going, how could this change be so monumental? And the only conclusion I would reach is it's not that big a change at all. All we're seeing is a change in actually noticing it for the first time.
I will say, Jim, with respect to these threats, I think a lot of us took a breath and said, great, it's not happening, and we got a reprieve. And then every day and we have a couple of stories today where we're going to talk to one of these people after 5:30, of businesses here already affected with none of these actual tariffs in place, which makes you wonder how much worse is it going to get before it gets any better.
And remember, we got this for 4 years. So a real change in our attitude, a real change in our business model is absolutely essential. It's not a matter of saying, well, we'll see how it goes. Yeah. No, we know how it's going to go. We're stuck with this guy for 4 years, and I don't care. I mean, you can giggle over wanting to turn the Gaza Strip. I think he heard the word strip and thought it was like Vegas. And, the Gaza Strip being turned into the Riviera of the Middle East, and not ask yourself how dangerously out to lunch do you have to be to even say something like that out loud? But that's where we are. But in the meantime, it's time for all of us in Quebec, in Canada, in the entire country to really grow up and take a look around us and say, not to a certain extent, it's mostly our fault. It was easier, as I said earlier this week, it was easier for us to deal with the U.S., easier, cheaper, whatever, not as much work, more return. All that is off the table now, and we have to make some very, very radical changes. And some people are proving themselves more agile than others. And I cannot ignore the fact that on a day where, every day is red alert here in Quebec City, and this is it's an okay poll for the Liberals, surprising, terrible poll for the CAQ. And what does the CAQ decide to do? Well, we're going to make hockey national sport of Quebec. I mean, Aaron, tell me you are completely politically out of gas without telling me you're completely politically out of gas. Of all the fundamentally, mind-numbingly stupid things to say out loud, even if you had it on the books, put it under your blotter for now and save it for another day, but not now. To think you are so, and of course, you, as we heard in the newscast, the reaction from the press is, don't you have better things to do with your time right now? Shouldn't you be looking at other issues? Even if you're the culture minister, culture is going to be under threat as well. But no, we're seeing the same kind of, I'm in the magic kingdom, and none of this other stuff affects me. And I think it's that more than anything else that is turning Quebecers everywhere off on the CAQ and on the muddled politics we've had to put up with for the past 6 years.
So you're saying this idea of making hockey our official sport in Quebec is not top of mind for most Quebecers, Jim? Is
it's the official sport already. You think I needed some clown in QC to say that?
What was it, by the way, before this? What was our official sport? I don't understand.
I have absolutely no idea.
It wasn't lacrosse. That's Canada's official. What was Quebec's official sport if we now have to declare hockey? Me too.
Staying in the left-hand lane.
With your flasher on. Okay. I want to ask you one last thing. I started the show with this. I'm going to come back to it. It's Pierre Poilievre's speech yesterday where he talked about, we're going to get tough on fentanyl. I'm sure it had nothing to do with, Donald Trump or the decision by Canada to spend all this money to go along with Trump and his war against fentanyl, and suggesting that we're going to be the party that's going to put these criminals, these traffickers, when they're caught in jail and treat them like murderers and basically give them mandatory life sentences when convicted, to which we then found out that this is already on the book. So what do you think about this? Because it seems to me, and I know I'm going to get people yelling at me saying I'm not being fair here, but why is he bringing this up now? If you're going to call this idea of a border czar, or rather a fentanyl czar, performative, what was this?
Listen, don't take what I'm about to say personally, Aaron, but the fact is, Pierre Poilievre, like Stephen Harper before him, all these boutique amendments to the criminal code, to the Sentencing Act, are being suggested by people who clearly got their legal training at the talk radio law school, right? It's like, hang them up by the and throw away the key. That's what this is. Every single vindictive, hang him slow, I want to watch him kick amendment by Harper and perhaps now by Poilievre has been shot down by the courts. The most notable was, remember when they had consecutive life terms for mass murders? The mosque shooter in Quebec City, they were going to send him away for 145 years, and it went all the way up to the Supremes, Aaron, and they said, okay, you know what? We, first of all, it is making a mockery of our judicial system, and the idea is, this is not, believe it or not, and if you want to change it, but we are not a punitive system. We're supposed to be rehabilitating people. There are plenty of people out there who would love to see that guy die in prison, and maybe he will. Remember, 25 years is just for parole. But the fact is, doing this, this dog and pony show, consecutive sentences. I think right now, this stunt by Poilievre is really handy if he's running to be governor of Texas, but he's running to be prime minister of Canada, and I think there's a big difference that someone should point out to him.
James Mennie at the Montreal Gazette. Thank you, Jim.
Matt.